Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Five a Day. Hope you're looking forward to this new week, and I hope you'll join with us for 5 minutes of spiritual reflection, spiritual insight, and something that I pray will just encourage you during this day, during this week, during your coming time. We looked briefly at a number of things last week, really to do with our own growth and our own spiritual growth. And a lot of that's kind of internal things, internal battles we need to make, changes that we need to look at. We looked in the context as well of how God has provided everything for us to help us to grow and to flourish and to bring change within our life. We looked at a lot of that these last few weeks. And I just want to look at a different aspect. I want to look at the external battles that we face, the external battles in many ways. Battles to survive, but also battles to go forward and to complete the mission of Christ in the world that we're in. Let me read you a few verses from Ephesians chapter 6. A final word, says Paul, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armour so that you'll be able to stand firm against all strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers of this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armour, so that you'll be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. This whole concept of standing firm is right through this passage. It's incredibly important here. From standing firm, we're able to withstand the enemy, and then we're able to move forward, and we're able to not just stand and survive in the battle, but we're able to go and share in the victory of Christ. We're able to go and battle for Christ. And it's incredibly important. Here he talks about being strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. And that's recognizing that it's in God our strength lies. And we need to trust on God and not in ourselves, not in our own seeming strength, which is weak in these battles that we're having to deal with. Put on all of God's armour, the panoply. That means the complete armour, not just a little bit of it and then leave ourselves exposed, but put on the full armour of God to be able to stand firm against all the strategies of the devil. Here we talk about the devil and his powers and the spiritual powers that rule behind the scenes, the conflicts that are going on behind the scenes that perhaps we're not aware of. Now we know in this world, in the natural, there are things that go on behind that we don't understand. There are conspiracy theories. Some of them might be true, some of them may not be, but we realize that behind what we see just in the world surface, there are things going on behind closed doors in other places that are, if you like, setting the strategy of what happens, of how governments work, of how certain groups and certain people work. And spiritually, that's the same. In fact, if you like, they're almost like pawns in this spiritual battle that goes on. But in Christ, we know from what's written, what we just looked at these last few weeks, we know that we're secure in Christ. And so we need to put on that fullness of Christ. We need to put on all that Christ is for us and has done for us. And we need to stand firm in that, not in our own strength. Turn your mind back to Luke chapter 4. And Jesus, before he began his ministry, spent 40 days in the desert. And the devil came and the devil tempted him. And the devil tempted him in several ways. And the devil's at work trying to tempt us, trying to pull us down. Tempted him to say, well, you're really hungry. Why don't you do a miracle? Why don't you turn these rocks into bread? Why don't you stop that spiritual journey? You've done pretty good now. And the devil tempts us. Then didn't work, so they took Jesus up really high and said, look, see all this? I'll give it to you. Just bow down to me. And there's a lot that we're offered if we're prepared to compromise and to bow down. And finally, it was, well, okay, look, why don't you just jump off the top of this temple and the angels will come and catch you. People will see this great miracle and, wow, you'll just show yourself to be powerful. And again, Jesus resists this more subtle temptation. Temptations come in all sorts of forms, but God has given us armour. We're going to look at that. Armour that will be defensive, but also armour that will enable us to attack and to move forward. And so we're going to look at that this week, but stand firm in God. Stand firm in Christ. He's given us everything to enable us to stand firm and not to be overwhelmed, overcome, seduced by temptation. God bless you. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow morning, maybe slightly earlier tomorrow, but don't worry, whatever time you tune in from 9 onwards, it will be there for you to have a look at.